Before I get started with the main topic of the video, I do want to thank everybody who followed me Monday night during my first live tweet session of a wrestling show, as I live tweeted during Monday Night Raw. It was actually kind of fun. I got a little snarky at points, but it was fun, and I followed some other people as well, and people commented on what I was tweeting and everything, and it was really fun, and I enjoyed it. So look. There's going to be more of those in the future. Actually, there's going to be one tonight. I'm going to be doing it again, live tweeting during Lucha Underground, and then another live tweet session while I watch NXT. I won't be watching NXT at 8 o'clock, obviously, because I'll be watching Lucha Underground. But, 9 o'clock, I'll start watching the most recent episode of NXT where they actually cover the Samoa Joe, Finn Balor. They're actually going to give us that match with the title change, so that'll be cool to see. But, it was actually kind of fun, so I'm definitely going to be doing more of those in the future. So thank you again, everybody who participated Monday night and made it so much fun. Also, if you would like to follow me on Twitter and participate in my live tweet sessions during other wrestling shows, the link to my Twitter is down in the description box. So have fun with that. I got pretty snarky with Raw, but I imagine with Lucha Underground I'll probably be a little bit more Mark heavy. Just kind of more excited and happy about what's going on. Especially tonight's show with the steel cage match and the trios tournament final. So I'm going to have a lot to be happy about. But, just wanted to get that out there. But the main topic of today's video is going to be a classic match review, a new series that I've talked about doing and that I wanted to start doing. And I actually tried to start it last year, was not able to, ran out of time and stuff like that. But, it's time to kick this series off. So basically I will be looking at matches pre-2000. That's the frame I'm kind of keeping it in for now. That'll probably change depending on how long the series goes. And once a month I'll be covering a classic from any promotion, again pre-2000, and giving my thoughts and feelings on them, both at the time I saw them and then my feelings on them now that I've given the match a rewatch. So today's match, the first entry in the list, first one I'm doing is Bret Hart versus Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship in a throw-in-the-towel submission match from Survivor Series 1994. Bret Hart had British Bulldog in his corner. Bob Backlund had Owen Hart in his corner. And the rules of the match were structured in a way that there were no pinfalls, no countouts, no disqualifications, and a submission could only be validated if the corner man threw in the towel for his man, which I'll talk about the rule structure in a little bit. But going back to when I watched this as a kid, I really enjoyed the feud here. I really, really liked the storyline between Bret Hart and Bob Backlund because they tweaked Bob Backlund in a way that made him a vastly more interesting character than he ever was when he was a babyface. Because I was not alive during Bob Backlund's big championship run during like the late 70s and early 80s. But when he got to the WWF, when he came back in 1992, and I was 7 years old watching him, and I'd heard he was the champion for 6 years or whatever, I looked at him and I was like, this guy was champion for 6 years? I no knock on Bob, but not his ability. I mean, I'm not knocking his ability at all. He's a very talented, gifted athlete, a gifted worker for sure, and he's one of those guys that could probably get a good match out of anybody. I've actually gone back and watched some of his matches with Hogan from like 1980, and those are like some of the best wrestling matches that Hogan ever had. And this was when Hogan was like super green too, doing the when he was with Classy Freddie Blassie and all that stuff. So Hogan was really, really green, and Backlund got a couple of really good matches out of him. So I'm not knocking Backlund's ability, but it's that whole charisma, it factor thing. It's like there was nothing there beyond, he's just kind of a happy-go-lucky guy that's just a good old bland good guy, basically. Actually, in his book, Larry Zbyszko called him Howdy Doody, because he's like, he looked like Howdy Doody. And if you don't know what Howdy Doody is, go look it up. I don't feel like explaining it. I'm shocked that I know what Howdy Doody is, but that was just the type of guy that Bob Backlund was. And then you bring him in '92, and he's actually like, he's old. So on top of the fact that he's bland and he's just there to play by the rules, and he didn't have an entrance theme. There was nothing about his look that made him stand out. He was just a very kind of of bland guy, especially to a 7-year-old kid. There's just nothing about him that really stood out. So I was not enamored with Bob Backlund, the babyface, but I had always heard about how he was champion for 6 years and how his reign came to an end when his manager, Arnold Skolin, threw in the towel during his title match against the Iron Sheik when he had him locked in the camel clutch. I heard about that, so I knew those little pieces of his story, but other than that, there's no real reason to be interested in him. And then on one episode, I believe it was WWF Superstars, he faced Bret Hart in a championship match. And Bret Hart ended up getting the victory, and Bob Backlund fucking snapped and just beat the crap out of Bret, and I believe he had locked on the crossface chicken wing at that point. And I was like, what's gotten into Bob? He's gotten crazy. And then over the next few weeks and months leading into this rematch at Survivor Series, Bob morphed into this lunatic who was obsessed with the fact that I never lost the WWF Championship. I was screwed. My manager cost me the title by throwing in the towel, but I never submitted. I never lost the championship, and just went on this tear where he was just a psychopath that locked in the crossface chicken wing on tons of people and became this really dangerous lunatic overnight, and it was awesome. And I was like, where has this Bob Backlund been? It's great. And it's not just that they turned him heel and he became more interesting. The story evolved in a way that made sense to me, where the second he said, it was like, look, I never lost the title. I'm the true champion. It's my belt. I never lost it. Immediately, it all made sense in my brain, because it was like, wow, okay, yeah, he's bitter. He's angry. He's carried around this burden and this bitterness and this anger for 11 years, and then losing to Bret in that title match just caused him to fucking snap. I'm digging this, and he played the character to a hilt. And anybody who says that Bob Backlund has no charisma did not watch his heel run during 1994, because he was amazing. And I love the whole Mr. Bob. You will call me Mr. Bob Backlund, and how he tried to be all conservative and proper, but he was also he was a psychopath, and he was really dangerous, and was just obsessed with locking people in the crossface chicken wing, which, as I said, had become one of my favorite submission holds during that time period. And it's amazing that nobody really does it anymore. You would think that somebody would have copied it, or somebody would have worked it into their moveset, but because you see the camel clutch all the time, you see the Boston Crab all the time, you see the sharpshooter, Scorpion Deathlock all the time. Figure four, you see. I saw the figure four. It felt like in 80s WWF, it felt like everybody had the figure four, because they were. I'm sure that Ric Flair had something to do with that, but you don't really see the crossface chicken wing all that much, and it's kind of a cool submission hold, I think. But anyway. So the heel turn for Bob really drove this story beautifully, and it also tied into Bret's storyline with Owen, where they had the falling out. Owen was the jealous brother that wanted to beat Bret for the title and prove that he didn't have to live in Bret's shadow, and that whole story. Bret had already defeated him at SummerSlam, and it was kind of understood that, because back in those days, if you lost a title match, it wasn't as easy getting back into the title picture, and by that point, Bret had beaten him at SummerSlam. He beat him on the first ever episode of Action Zone, and by that point, it was like, all right, Owen, you've had your chances. You can't challenge Bret for the title anymore as long as Bret's the champion. You can't be the challenger. So Owen still had an invested interest in wanting Bret to lose the title, and and that whole story. And then Bulldog was in Bret's corner, and he had come back at SummerSlam 94 and was one of the victims of Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart during their massive beatdown following the cage match. So he had a reason to be angry at Owen and stand by Bret. So there's a lot of different stories, a lot of different components at work here, and it was all very good. And when I was a kid, this was one of my favorite matches. It was just a pure wrestling classic with a ton of drama, especially at the end. And again, with a heel that made perfect sense to me and was entertaining in his own weird little way, and a babyface that I adored in Bret Hart. So everything just clicked, and it was just one of those matches that was just so beautiful and so perfect to me. Watching it again as an adult, it still holds up very well, and I would still say it's one of my favorite matches. Couple problems with it. Now that I'm looking at it with the analytical brain of a 31-year-old, one of my main problems with the match is the rule structure, where it wasn't entirely clear if, like, Brett or Bob could just submit and the match would be over, or if the towel had to be thrown in for the submission to count. And if the towel is needed for the submission to count, then why would the corner man like ever throw the towel in? I mean, you could theoretically. I mean, I guess you would get to a point where they're trapped and they couldn't break out of the submission hold, which I'll get to that when I get to the ending. But I don't know. It just felt weird. Like, Owen, being the dick that he is never going to throw that towel in, because he doesn't really give a shit about Bob Backlund, and he just wants Brett to lose, so he's never going to throw that towel in. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do there. So to me, it felt like it was, it's funny, because one of my knocks on cage matches is that it should be either escape the cage or pinfall and submission to win the match. Because if you have both, then it creates too many situations where, well, why'd you do one when you could have just as easily done the other or something? It creates too many confusing situations. Here, I think it could have been both. It's like, all right, each man has a corner man that can throw in the towel if they feel like their man's in danger, but both men could also submit if they feel that they can no longer continue, or if they're in too much pain or whatever. It's like they really should have. I don't know. It just a little tweaking of the rule structure could have made that better. But there's also this stuff with poor British Bulldog, who got knocked out during the match, which led to the ending, which I'll talk about that in a minute. And he was out for an obscene amount of time, like the referee and Undertaker and Triple H at WrestleMania 17 level of, like, just knocked out for an obscenely long time. And it just felt like, it's like, maybe they should have had, like, professional, like, medical assistants, like, cart him to the backstage area, because the fact that he was unconscious for so long and nobody checked on him is kind of unintentionally hilarious, when it should have been, look, just put him on a stretcher and carry him to the back. His role in the match is done anyway. But I wonder what wrestlers do, like, what do they think when they have to be unconscious for that long? Like, Big Show at when he dropped the WCW title to Hogan, when Hogan first went to the NWO. What was that show? It was Hog Wild, Road Wild. One of the, I don't remember which one came first. It was one of those. And he was out for just an obscenely long time. What do? They just lay there on the mat with their eyes closed? I mean, try to imagine laying completely still with your eyes closed and you can't move for like an extended period of time. It's actually much harder than it seems, because you kind of get bored and you want to get up and just do something and move around a bit. So anyway, yeah, so the Bulldog thing was a little off. But other than that, the match is a pure wrestling classic. And I'm not I don't have a preference to any one wrestling style, whether it be like, if you're a big power guy, or you're a technical mat wizard, or if you're a high flyer or whatever. I don't really have a preference. You just have to do what you do really, really well. That's all that matters to me. And Brett and Bob are two of the best technical wrestlers that have ever graced the sport. So you knew what this match was going to be like. And it had all the drama, had all the intrigue, had all the fun, and it was all them doing great mat wrestling stuff with each other, and it was very, very good and very well worked between two guys that knew how to get it done. And a lot of the counter wrestling that they did, a lot of the holds that they locked on each other, a lot of the moments where it looked like Bob was calling for the towel and Owen wouldn't throw it in, and Owen Hart was kind of, in many ways, was the MVP of this match. And I guess that'll lead into where I talk about the finish, where Owen Hart is causing a distraction. Bulldog chases him around the ring, and through some mishap winds up trying to tackle Owen, but crashes into the steel steps where he knocks himself out like a cartoon character. And then Owen is able to get the referee distracted and hit a Bulldog on Brett to break up the sharpshooter, because Brett had the sharpshooter locked on Bob. And that set up Brett to go down to the crossface chicken wing. Bob was able to lock it in, and Brett was in the center of the ring and couldn't really do anything about it, because the idea was that hold was inescapable, and once Bob locked it on, you couldn't get out. And Brett could not get it out. And Brett was in the hold for so long, I think, and I'm not entirely sure on this, but giving it a rewatch, Vince McMahon and Gorilla Monsoon on commentary commented that Brett had been in the hold for 5 minutes, And then after they said that, he had to have been in the hold for another like 3 or 4. So he was in the hold for a very long time. I don't know how accurate those numbers are, but again, try to imagine if wrestling was a shoot, try to imagine being in a submission hold where your arm is being torqued for, you know, like even a minute. Because, you know, if you watch UFC or something, guys like tap out almost instantly once they're trapped. But Brett was in this hold for a very, very long time, and it felt like the longer he was in the hold, the more painful it got. It was like, good God, his arm must be snapped in half at this point. I wish JR was on camera. Oh my God, his arm must be broken in half. But yeah, it just kept going and going. The crowd kept chanting for Brett, but he can't do anything. He's trapped. And it got so bad that Owen Hart started to cry and started to be like, that's my brother, he's in pain, I didn't mean for this to happen. And you think that's like, oh, the true Owen Hart has come out, and oh, he's gonna stick by his brother. And then Stu and Helen Hart, their parents, were sitting in the front row, and Owen, being the corner man for Bob, couldn't throw the towel in for Brett. So he was able to plead to his mother and his father to throw the towel in for Brett. And Brett is in the hold the entire time all of this is going on. And Stu won't do it, but eventually, Helen breaks down and takes the towel from Stu and throws the towel in to save Brett. And Bob Backlund becomes the WWF World Heavyweight Champion. And Owen Hart gets a smile on his face, throws his arms in the air and runs to the back, and then cuts a promo after the match bragging about how he had created the perfect situation where Bret Hart lost the title and he got his mom and dad to do it he got his mom and dad to cost Bret Hart the title and basically give Owen what he always wanted. And I was like, man, you're an asshole. Because I gotta be honest, watching it again, like his oh my God, that's my brother, and blah blah blah, and getting the tears and everything, it was fairly convincing. Like, not because he was a heel at the time, you always kind of, even as a kid, I was like, he's probably faking it just to screw Brett over. But it was like, yeah, Owen's performance was very good in this, and he really sold the pain that Brett must have been in, being locked in the chicken wing for that long. And also, he really had to carry the dramatic element through the final moments of that match, because Brett's trapped in a submission hold and Bob's got it locked on, so they can't really do anything for like that 6, 7, or 8 minutes or however long it was. So Owen's got to be the one to kind of carry the load there and tell the story that they want to tell. And I thought he did it pretty well. And actually, the look on Helen's face when she threw the towel in was actually kind of heartbreaking. And yeah, so overall, I mean, this match had great action, great wrestling, great chain wrestling, and all that, and great drama too, and great character development, great story payoff, and the shocking title change of Bob Backlund winning the WWF title at age 45. And I was like, and you know what? Looking back on it, I'm in favor of that move. They made Bob a very interesting character at that point, and I bought it. And I was like, yeah, Bob, oh my God. It's like, you can get enough mileage out of this guy as a top heel. I wish they did. Unfortunately, less than a week later, Bob Backlund would challenge Diesel at an MSG house show for the WWF title and proceed to lose the title in 7 seconds. So, he was really just a transitional champion to get from Brett to Diesel. And, and that's unfortunate, because I thought they really kind of shortchanged what they could have gotten out of the Bob Backlund character. It was really really unfortunate, because I felt like they could have gotten a lot more out of Bob going forward. Of course, the program with Brett would still continue. They would have their WrestleMania match, which was the I Quit match, which is terrible. And it's unfortunate, because you look at the Survivor Series match, you look at the WrestleMania match, you almost can't believe that it's the same two guys working the same match. But everything that the WrestleMania match wasn't, this match is. And I wish that I wish the WrestleMania match had been as good as the Survivor Series match. Giving it a rewatch, I still hold this match up very high. I think it's kind of an underrated gem. I think it gets overlooked. It's a match that I'm a huge fan of. Another point of interest, Bob Backlund's post-match celebration is absolutely the stuff of magic, where he gets the goofiest looking facial expressions on his face, crazed, lunatic look. I mean, it looks fucking great. And he does like all like the classic old school poses, like going up to the turnbuckle, holding up the belt, and does all of his like old stuff of doing kind of the duck walk across the ring and everything. And it looks so silly, but so great too. And it's like, oh, Bob, I love you. I love Bob Backlund so much, and I really wish they had run with him as heel champion, because I think there was plenty they could have gotten out of him. But maybe not until WrestleMania, but at least until the Royal Rumble, I think they could have gotten a little bit more time out of Bob. But that said, this match is one of my personal favorites from my childhood. I love it, and it still holds up to this day. So. Really good one. And if you have not seen this match, I highly recommend checking it out, even though I've already spoiled the finish for you. I mean, you probably already knew it anyway. But, it's, like I said, it's one of my favorites from my childhood. So I definitely think it's worth checking out. So that is all I have for now. Hope you all enjoyed this first installment of Classic Wrestling Match Reviews. I'll be doing these once a month, so stay tuned for next month when I do the next one. And as for my next video, it will probably be a WWE Payback preview video. That'll be up either Friday or Saturday. And then the next video after that will be a Payback review along with the top 10 matches for the month of April 2016. But I am done for now. That is all I have. So until then, later, everybody.